Hi everyone, my name is Brian. I'm a docent here at the Lincoln Park Conservatory. I've been here since 2015, and today I'm going to give you an introduction to my favorite part of the conservatory, the orchid house. So let's take a look. In the orchid house, we actually grow three different types of plants. The first one would be Bromeliads, which you see here down along the bottom. These also include plants like pineapples, which you would be familiar with. Second kind of plant that we grow are carnivorous plants, and a good example of that here is the pitcher plant. Insects actually crawl in here, and when they get to the bottom, there's a fluid here that dissolves the body, and then the nutrients are drawn back up into the plant to feed it. And then the third type of plant here in the orchid house that I'd like to talk about is orchids, of course. And we have a great collection here of cattleyas and paphs, lady slipper orchids. So let me give you some details on some more of the orchids in our collection. So a common question we get from a lot of visitors is, what makes an orchid an orchid? Well, give you a little background on orchids. There's at least 30,000 species that have been identified so far, and they can be found on every continent in the globe except for Antarctica. They also fall into three basic categories. The first one would be a lithophyte, and a lithophyte orchid is one that grows up rocks, or a rock climber. And a great example of that is our vanilla orchid that you see here, and it does produce vanilla pods for us. One of the reasons that vanilla is so expensive in the store when you go shopping for it is because it comes from an orchid, and a lot of people weren't aware of that. Second type of orchid is called terrestrial, and just like the name suggests, it grows in the ground. And a perfect example of a terrestrial orchid is the lady slipper orchid that you see here on the ground. These are very common orchids, and in fact they grow everywhere, including here in Illinois. If you're ever out doing some hiking, it's possible you'll run across some of these. The third kind of orchid is called an epiphyte, and epiphytes rely on getting their water and nutrients from the air. They normally would grow on a tree branch natively, but here in the conservatory we actually have them in pots. Classic example of an epiphyte is the cattleya of orchids, which you've probably seen used in corsages and other applications. Another unique orchid that we have here in the greenhouse, and we picked a good day to be here, is the bamboo orchid. It's got these beautiful purple and white flowers. They're extremely fragrant. And what's unique about this particular orchid is that when it blooms, the bloom opens in the morning, and by sunset, the bloom will have completely faded, and by tomorrow morning, the bloom will have fallen off. It blooms frequently throughout the year, but when it does bloom, the flower only lasts for one day. So you picked a really good day to be here. Another popular question we get from visitors here in the conservatory is about orchid care. A lot of people are intimidated by orchids because they think they're too exotic to grow, and that's really not the case. There's a lot of varieties of orchids that grow really well in the home environment. As long as you can provide proper light and water, a large number of orchids are really easy to grow at home. So if you're thinking about growing orchids for the very first time, the one I would recommend you start with is the moth orchid. You probably recognize this orchid because you can buy it in just about any grocery store or big box retailer. And what's really nice about the moth orchid is that they like the kind of environment that most people have in their homes. Temperature range around 75 degrees, bright indirect light, and it will bloom 2 or 3 times a year for you, and the blooms will last for several weeks, if not a couple of months. So if you're looking to get into orchids, this is the one I would recommend you get started with. If you're looking for some additional information on the right way to grow orchids at home, there's a really great resource online through the American Orchid Society. Their website is aos.org, and on their website there are some free culture sheets that you can download for free for most of the more popular types of orchids. So I highly recommend you visit their website for more information on culture tips. I have a special treat for you today. We're going to go behind the scenes of the conservatory here. In the back, in addition to the 4 public greenhouses that you can visit when you're here, we have 15 more grow houses in the back that supply the plants for the entire facility, and 2 greenhouses set aside for orchids alone. So I'm going to take you back and show you what goes on behind the scenes in the orchid house. So here we are in one of the greenhouses where we keep our orchid collection. As you can see, we have literally thousands of orchids in here. And where we're standing right now is where all of our Phalaenopsis, or our moth orchids that we talked about a little while ago, are being grown. And as you can see, a lot of them are starting to send up flower spikes. So as these blooms open up in the next few weeks, these will be taken out to the showroom for you to enjoy when you visit. And then when the blooms fade, we bring them back here to the grow house, and they're maintained until the next bloom cycle where we'll take them out to display them once again. So I want to let you know also about a special project we're doing right now, and that's a complete inventory of our entire orchid and bromeliad collection. You may notice as you're looking at the flowers here that we've got a lot of red tags here. What we're doing is we're going through every single orchid in the collection, and we are writing down the family and genus and species of every single orchid we have, so that, and building a database so that we have a complete record of everything in the orchid collection here at the conservatory. Once that's done, it will enable us to improve the collection and get more exotic and rare species in here in the future. So I hope you've enjoyed our visit to the Orchid House today and our sneak peek behind the scenes of what goes on here at the conservatory. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button down below and be sure to check out all of our other videos. And we're looking forward to having you all back when it's safe to do so. Have a great day.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Are we rolling?